Hey everyone, welcome to the latest Bedford Talks episode. And in today's episode, we have someone that I've been wanting to interview for a while. We've been trying to do this for almost a year, but we finally made it. It's been a crazy year, but here we are in your studio. Everyone, this is Pam Stukenborg.
Thank you, Tyler. So appreciate you wanting to interview me. This is great. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for taking the time and also letting us be in your space. I specifically wanted to film in your space, in your laboratory, so to speak. You know, you have your setup here, your well-known headshot. This is I've seen some other photographers do it, and I'm like, okay, that's the Peter Hurley, Pam Stukenborg. It's you know this headshot. It's a headshot crew. Mm-hmm. Headshot crew doing that, and so I've seen a lot of other people emulate that, so it's kind of cool to see it here, and this is where it goes down.
Yes, yes. And you know, for so long, I got my lighting wrong. For years, I got my lighting wrong. But the one thing that I did have down was the experience and interacting with the people, helping them feel comfortable having their picture taken. And so thankfully, I finally got my lighting right, and with actually some personal coaching, one-on-one with Peter was like, I need to see what you're doing.
Let's just modify this thing, and then you're there. Mm-hmm. So I kind of jumped ahead a little bit. Sorry about it.
That's all right.
I've known Pam for a few years, and it's just like I'm just hanging out with a friend. So it feels really cool. Yeah. But Pam, for those that don't know you, tell everyone about yourself and the type of photography you do. I know we kind of teased it, but
sure. Yes. Well, I'm a headshot specialist, and I like to say specialist, not just photographer, because I pretty much 90% of my business is just headshots. And I do work with some models, authors, and actors, and then they need a little bit more than just the headshot. But for the most part, it's my business. I specialize in just that. And people may think, well, doesn't that get boring just doing headshots all the time? Well, no, because each person's different, you know, and their comfort level behind having, you know, when they're having the picture taken, some people are more comfortable than others, and then the real fun challenge is helping people who, especially when they say to me on the phone during the consult call, I look terrible in pictures. I take a terrible picture, and I was like, oh, I can't tell you. I'll tell them. I can't tell you how that is music to my ears, because what we're going to do together is going to be something that it's going to change your life. Because from here on out, the techniques that we do together and that I teach you during this headshot session, you can use these for the rest of your life. Whether or not someone says, hey, let's do a group photo, or hey, you know, oh, let's do a selfie together. You will feel so much more comfortable now doing that. So it's really fun, really empowering people to do that.
And how many years have you been shooting photography, and how many years have you been doing headshots, I guess more directly, like more specifically?
Right. Well, I can remember as a little kid getting a hold of my mom's camera, and we always had puppies. Our dog was always having puppies, and I would dress the puppies up in doll clothes, and I stuck this one in a dollhouse with this little head peeking out, and I took the picture of it, and this was back, like, I would say, maybe like the late 70s, early 80s.
Was this like an instant camera, or was this a film
you
had to wait for it?
You had to wait. You had to send the film off to get, which that always was a process because we couldn't always afford to develop the film. So I do have this one little picture from way back then. And I also, with regards to like photography and how you even get started, my love of photography started way back then as a little kid. So I don't know if you know this about me, but we had a house fire when I was 6 years old. And we lost everything. And at a very young age, photos became so important. Like, where are there any pictures left? You know, do any of our relatives, we go visit relatives, do you have any family pictures of us? And and especially pictures were important because I lost a brother who was only 7 in the fire also. So to see a picture with all 5 of us kids and my parents all together, those became so precious. So at the age of 6, I realized the importance of pictures, and I just felt drawn to it and always loved it. So at the age of 19, 20, I bought a Pentax film camera body from a pawn shop for $100, and a friend of mine gave me a couple of lenses, and I started just taking classes here and there. I've never been formally trained, but just took classes. at community college or at the local camera shop. So it was always just a love, but it was always a barrier getting the film developed.
Oh yeah, for sure. But yeah, it's interesting. I did know of the story. I'm glad you mentioned that, and that's a terrible thing, especially to go through as a young child, not only to lose your home, but lose a family member. But I didn't realize you and your brother were that close in age.
Yeah, we were only 14 months apart. We were practically twins. We were inseparable, and he was such a happy guy. My brother Chris, he was just so cute, and well, I'm like, I just said, oh, we were like so close and just alike. He's so cute. I remember the first time he tied his shoe. We're sitting on the porch together. We were probably maybe 4, and did the old rabbit ears and tied his shoe.
Trying to figure it out.
Yeah, we were trying to figure it out. My older siblings had gone off to school, so we were just trying to figure it out, and he did it, and we were like, whoa! It was like such a huge thing. It's such a sweet memory to have of Chris, and we know, someday we'll be reunited again in heaven, and while it's been, 50 years, this year was 50-year anniversary.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's hard to believe, but so thankful for the memories that I still have. And it also makes you just kind of cherish, and when you hear of, especially October is a big month where there are, the weather turns and people are turning on heaters or trying to heat their houses with ovens or whatever. Yeah, it's really a big time that people need to be changing out those smoke detector batteries and whatnot. So.
For sure. And I think would you say that having gone through that experience, especially at a young age, and pretty much losing everything, every worldly possession, do you think that made your pursuit of photography, just not only as a personal level, but even as a career path, that much more important, that you wanted to impart on other people, like, this is important to do, don't put this off,
Yes, I've always loved taking pictures of people. Back in the early days, I got flowers and stuff like that, but I got kind of bored with the flowers.
Oh, yeah.
The landscape. One of my first pictures I took with my film camera was it was a winter cold. I grew up in New Hampshire, and it was like there was ice and snow everywhere, and there was this pine tree, and I took a red rose and stuck it in the pine tree, and so you get the green of the pine and the rose, cool. And it's like, but there's no way a rose is going to grow in the wintertime in a pine tree, It's like, it's not even realistic. So I'm like, whatever. But I was honing my skills back then with the settings, and, I'd been taking the classes. I was like making sure I had my exposure right and those things. Because the basics with film photography are very much the same with digital photography. So fast forward to, it was 18 years ago when I started shooting with digital camera. I married the infamous and wonderful Bernie Stukenborg, and he was the wedding photographer at my nephew's wedding, shooting with a Canon 10D.
10D, oh, there you go.
We still have it too.
You still have the camera?
Yes. And so then when Bernie and I got married and moved here to Tulsa, Oklahoma, just probably, September we got married, July of that next year we moved here, and Bernie suggested, he's like, what do you think about not going to work outside the home? Because I was working 2 jobs by the time when he had met me. Oh. And I was like, not work outside the home.
Not photography related?
No, not at all. Okay. I've never done photography professionally until I moved to Oklahoma.
Interesting. Okay.
Because I couldn't afford to.
Sure. It's not easy.
No, it's not. No, and plus, cost of living. I mean, in a previous life, I was married before, and one year for Christmas, I was like, listen, I had a Ziploc bag full of film camera that had been shot. I couldn't afford to get it developed. So I'm like, for Christmas, I would love to get this film developed. That's all I want for Christmas. So that's what I got for Christmas. Yay! All the pictures come back, start flipping through. It's the old boyfriend. He's like, what? My ex-husband, he's like, I gave you like old pictures of your boyfriend for Christmas. I'm like, I didn't know how long I had this film. So be careful if you're like at an old film, you're like, oh, what's on this? So now fast forward to, we moved here to Oklahoma 17 years ago. And so Bernie's like, hey, why don't you think about not working outside the home? And I was like, what in the Sam Hill am I going to do all day? Not what? I was not for that. I was like, no, I need to contribute. I need to work.
Right.
So Bernie, being the good man, he's like, well, sweetheart, just try it. Just try it, and if you find you're terribly bored and you don't like it, then, go find something that you want to do. And so I was like, okay. all right, I'll do that. 2 weeks later, I'm retired. Whoa!
Oh, you
I
were.
loved it.
Oh, okay.
I loved it. I could sleep. You know, when I had the 2 jobs, I was down to 2 jobs.
Oh, okay.
So I had gone through a divorce, and I was like, you know, I don't care just because I've gone through a divorce. I will pay my bills, and if one job isn't paying the bills, I'm gonna get a second job. Second job's not doing it, I'm gonna third one. Third one, I was up to 4, like 1 main job and 4 little part-time jobs.
Oh, sure.
Because I was gonna pay my bills.
Oh, yeah.
So anybody wants to talk about work ethic, I will have a conversation with you gladly.
You're like, there's plenty of hours in the day. I can fill those up.
That's right. And plus, you know, I had a cat and a dog. You know, it wasn't like I had, you know, any little ones that I was trying to care for. So, you know, it was just me. And so I basically ate standing up for 2 or 3 years because I just was working. And but it, you know what? It totally worked out. All those years of, you know, my credit's awesome, and so when we sold that little house I had in New Hampshire, it was enough for the down payment for the home we have here now in Oklahoma. So all that hard work, you know, it pays off. And there may be short-term things that we might be going through that are difficult, but kind of like taking the long view. You know what? This is a season right now. I have to work really hard, but it may not be like this forever. But even though I didn't have any end in sight, I still was like, I'm going to do the right thing and work hard. Yes. So when I figured myself out after 2 weeks of like, yeah, I like this retired stuff, and then Bernie's like, why don't you, you know, learn the digital camera? Go take some camera classes, you know, and figure that out. And so I was like, okay. So there's another local store, Apertures, that I would go to them because I didn't want to go to the competition that your store bought out because I wasn't a fan. Sorry. Oh. I didn't like the way they treated people, so I would drive. So I would drive down to 21st and Harvard, and they had classes. I took some great classes with them, and then I just would watch YouTube videos, taught myself Photoshop Elements is what I started out editing with.
I remember that.
There was one before that. There was an editing program, Pegasus? Or
I don't remember that one. I do
might have been
remember,
Pegasus.
I learned on Lightroom 1.
Okay.
I remember that, but then also Apple's version, which was Apple Aperture. Do you remember that one? I don't know if you ever touched that one.
No.
I loved that one.
Yeah.
And that Apple like gradually got rid of it and like moved a lot of those features into Apple Photos.
Okay.
So it's like,
that's so funny.
Okay, but now I use Capture One, so I don't know what you're using now.
Yeah, I shoot into Capture One. I shoot tethered from my camera into Capture One, and then I edit in Photoshop.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't even. I tried Lightroom.
You're not a batch processor, like.
No.
No.
No, I try.
You don't really need to. I mean, when you're just trying to find the right one, right?
Yeah, and they're with Capture One, where they all kind of populate in. They have a great starring system, so I have a whole system of paring it down. Because, excuse me, the client and I, when we do our headshot together, we by the time the session's over, we have the headshots chosen that are going to get edited.
Oh, that's efficient.
Yes, it is very efficient because think about it, if I send them a contact sheet or a contact gallery with all the images, and they're having their husband or or kids or Uncle Bobby or whatever helping, they're not looking at with a trained eye.
Right.
They don't know what I'm looking for, and it gets as detailed as what's your job description. Your job description. Oh, okay, you're a therapist. All right, we don't want a big goofy one that's all cheesy, or oh, you're a financial person. You need to look really trustworthy. And so those expressions, and it comes down to the micro expression where I'm covering up the mouth, we're looking at the eyes, and it can be a micro expression in the eye or a micro expression in the mouth that will be the deal breaker beside, why would you choose this one over that one, when to the person standing there, the client, they look identical to them, but I'm like, oh, but wait, they're not. So anyway, so I specialize in headshots specifically. Although I will tell you, at PhotoCon, the conference this past weekend that we just had, I was inspired by the Envoy photo walk that happened, that kicked off PhotoCon. There was a couple, he was 90, Bill and Sue, they were so sweet. And working with them, and because I was helping lead the Envoy, and so just kind of helping them get in position and just talking with them. Turns out they're hard of hearing, and so if one of the photographers was back here and they said to ask them to do something, well, they couldn't hear them.
Oh,
So it's like, that's something that, it's like, okay, I dial into that, all right, hard of hearing, make sure you speak up loud. So telling, you know, the person, okay, make sure you speak up, you know, and give them guidance, because they were just kind of standing there with their arms by their side and just kind of being adorable, sweet, mature people. And I was like, well, let's turn here. And then, all right, Bill, I want you to go in for the kiss. And so he's like, okay. I'm like, no, just kind of go in slowly. And I grabbed my iPhone because I didn't bring my camera because I'm helping everybody else with their cameras.
Right.
And so I'm like, I snapped a couple, and I put it on my Instagram page. And oh my goodness, it's like one of my favorite photos. And just the look on her face when he's going in for the kiss.
Oh.
It was like, oh, my blood melted. And I was like, this one here. And then seeing Joel Grimes, and then seeing Jerry Gionis. And I thought to myself, like, you know what? I love doing the headshots, but I also love this interaction with like couples and the people and that kind of thing. So, not kind of thing, but with people. And I'm like, I think I need to do a little more of this and lean into that kind of portrait more so, just sweet, yeah.
Well, in the out of the box, I guess, perspective of looking at light. And 'cause with Joel, I feel like it was very much with, hey.
Tui the studio cat has made her presence. Yes.
Tui?
Tui, yep, as in Tuesday, Tuwee.
Hey.
She's an important part of the studio.
I can see that.
Therapy
cat?
Yes. You know, if people like, she can be gone, like she hasn't been in here the whole time. All of a sudden, lights are on. She comes rolling in and greets us like this. And I have to ask the client, I'm like, oh my gosh, do you hate cats? Are you allergic? Because if so, I need to shut the door to keep her out. And one time I shut the door and I had the bathroom door, the sloops around. All of a sudden, she just walked right back in the studio. I'm like, we just put you out. What are you doing? So, but most people either, like your reaction when you saw Tui in the window in the other room, you're like, oh, she looks like my cat. How did my cat get here? Teleported? Right. What? But it's very comforting. Nice. They start petting her. She talks to them, and they forget about the fact they're here to have their headshot taken.
Oh.
Yes. So.
You're as talkative as my cat.
Yeah, she is. She is. Yeah. She may even try and hop up on your lap, but I doubt it.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah. So when 17 years ago, started learning digital photography, learning how to edit. And it was 10 years ago, I hurt my elbow.
Was it your like repetitive stress thing from holding a camera, or was it something else? And
I hurt it over a weekend.
Oh no.
Oh yes. Yeah, it was a shoot, it wasn't even it was Council of Science Editors. It was a customer of my husband Bernie's. They had a conference, and like, hey, your wife's a photographer. Will she take pictures of the conference, of the trade show, and then of the rooms, people speaking? And it's like, sure, yeah, absolutely. Hey, you need to settle down. We're gonna put you out. All right, Tui. Here. All right, we'll set her right here. In case people want to see who's making all the noise. Right there, yeah. So she'll quiet down as she settles. There we go. Yeah. So I had put my camera, this was the Canon 10D, or it might have been the 7D at that time. I had bought a new one.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was the first generation 7D.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah. And I had it on a strobo frame. I had the flash mount on the strobo frame. And the trade show room was so big, like from one side of the room to the middle of the room to the other side of the room, the lighting was all different. And I was shooting manual. So for Friday, Saturday, and then going around to each one of the rooms where people were speaking, sometimes the lights were off. Sometimes they had the slide, all the lights were on, slides, all this stuff. So the lighting situation was so different. So I was adjusting aperture and shutter speed for those 2 days solid.
Oh, goodness.
And then Saturday I edited from 9 at night till 4 in the morning so they could have images for their closing luncheon. Wow. And by Tuesday I could not pick up even an 8-ounce glass of orange juice with this arm. My elbow hurt so bad. Yeah, it was devastating.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it was devastating.
Your body was telling you to slow down.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So that was like, oh no, what are we gonna do? So that was 10 years ago, and that was in May. But in the previous February, Bernie and I had gone to New York City And a few months before that, on Google Plus, remember Google Plus?
Oh,
the videos?
yeah.
Okay. On Google Plus, I'd seen a fella on there, on Scott Kelby. It was one of his things, and there was a guy on there throwing T-shirts out to the crowd, and he was a photographer.
They were promoting Google Plus. Was that like the weekend or the week they were
no,
launching?
Just Scott Kelby was. Here, you can hop down. Scott Kelby he would do.
It was his thing.
It was his thing, his photography thing, and it was launched on the platform of Google Plus.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So he had this photographer on there who was like really excited about photography and was throwing T-shirts in the crowd, was having a great time, and I'm like, who is this? And he started talking about his photography, and it was about headshots, and it was Peter Hurley, and I was like, who is this guy? And I was like, well, like he's kind of fun. And then at the time, his video is all about the jawline had come out.
Right.
And so I started watching that, and I watched it over and over and over again, and to learn those chops. And then he came up with this all about the squinch, which is the whole eye thing.
Yeah.
And so it was like February, just before that May, where I hurt my elbow. That February, I'd said to Bernie, I'm like, I want to go to New York City for Valentine's Day. Can we do that? and so Bernie's like, I think I can manage that. Since he travels for a living, I could just kind of get, and he had the companion pass with Southwest, which was awesome.
Tons of points.
Yeah. So it was great. So we were on a train from DC going to New York, and I went to Peter Hurley, like info.com, his website, and said, hi, my husband Bernie and I, we're visiting from Oklahoma, and we're going to be in New York City is there any way we'd love to stop by the studio and just shake your hand? And I hit send. And then I tell Bernie, guess what I just did? I was all excited, all proud of myself, And Bernie's like, oh, baby, he's a very busy person. He's not going to be able to meet with us, But an hour later, his assistant said, oh, sure, Thursday the 14th, could you meet him at 10:30? And it was like, wow. Yes, we can. and so we went to Peter's studio, and he was just as nice as can be. And back when he had Kino Flows, he had the Hasselblad, and a long time ago, and almost 10 years. And so Bernie and I went to lunch, and we were like, wow, there's something about this whole headshot thing. This is really interesting, And so then we kind of just went about our business, and then so February, March, April, May is when I hurt myself, and on our way back from San Antonio, Bernie said, I think you need to just park that camera on a tripod, because I couldn't lift it. And he's like, why don't you just dial into this headshot thing? And I said, yeah, I can do that. So we remodeled this room. It was carpet, it was beige, it was just a couch and a TV for the kids to play games and stuff. So this became my studio, and that was 10 years ago. And at that time, like I hadn't even gone through, formal training with Peter with the Headshot Intensive. I just kept watching that. It's all about the jawline video over and over again. My clients would come in and be like, okay, we're gonna watch this little video. It's about 5 minutes long. I'd fast forward through the intro. I'm like, okay, this is what we're doing, and just started building my business that way, and I just loved it. And it's been an interesting journey, because especially always trying to learn and grow. And we've had weekly Zoom meetings that we were on, and always trying to just grow ourselves as photographers and honing our skills. And so that's what I've been doing for the past 10 years, and I still absolutely love it. Yeah.
That's really neat, because when you think about headshot, you're like, that sounds like the most boring thing. Like, right. You're just, because I've seen people do this type of setup, and they'll go to a business, and I'm sure you may do that for.
Sometimes I charge a lot of money because I take this whole studio out and bring it. It has to
be like this, yeah.
Yeah, I bring the whole thing to them, unless I have one client they have a specialty area that doesn't need all of this, and it's just a 2-light setup. But for the most part, if I'm coming to your business, everything's coming with me. The lights, the 8-foot poles, yeah, exactly. Because here's what's wonderful is, say they have a new hire. Well, are they going to bring me back out there again? It's like, no, you can just send them to my studio, and I can get the same consistent you know, backdrop and all that stuff, lighting, everything that I've provided there on site. So, and I really encourage corporate clients to send their people here to me, because we know picture day at the office. Things go crazy, things you wouldn't even think of, you know, and so it's kind of like I encourage them to do that and let them know, hey, it will cost you extra to have me come to you.
Right. It seems convenient for you,
right,
but not for me.
Right. And then the other element is I will say, give me the list of your people with their contact information. I will reach out to them. I'll coordinate all the appointments. It doesn't have to be one big picture day. If one is more convenient on this day or that day, or say a lady wants to get hair and makeup done. Say they want to have hair and makeup done. I have a makeup artist and a hairstylist that I send them to, and then they come here. So it really makes it more so the pressure's off from having all your coworkers in line or waiting, and oh, I've got that phone call, I can't leave my desk right now, and you know, so. Well, I do make it a great time. When I do come to the studio, I mean, bring it to the corporation, we have a great time, because I still bring the music and bring all the energy that it takes to make it a really nice experience. But it's like better to send it here.
So on a normal day-to-day basis, what camera and lens are you usually rocking?
Sure, yes. I shoot with a Canon R6. And my go-to lens, it used to be the 70-200 and set at about 91, 92 millimeters. But I've actually been shooting now for a couple years with the 85 millimeter prime. I love it. I love it. It is a gorgeous lens. And there it is right there.
Yeah, if any of you have ever used this lens, it is a little bit of a workout. Thankfully, we're just talking about repetitive stress imagery, and thankfully you have it on the tripod here. Yeah, because I mean, if you've ever seen that front element,
it's a beast.
That's a thick piece of glass.
Yeah, it is.
But you can shoot wide open. I mean, it's tack sharp at 1.2, which is amazing. Yeah. I am assuming you do not shoot the headshots at f1.2 or anywhere near f1.2.
No. Be like, oh wow, the tip of the nose in focus, awesome. But the eyes, wish they were a little crisper.
No one's seeing your hair because it's all blurry.
Right. Yeah, I'm usually at like about 7.1.
Okay, so pretty deep.
Yeah, pretty deep, because I want everything really crisp and in focus and clear, so. I should play with the shallower depth of field, but for the most part, I like it just tack sharp.
Oh, for sure. Because I've heard a lot of magazine covers are shot at around f8 or f10, especially if, not so much for the headshot, but if like, I guess like waist up or even feet up, because they're wanting to show all the clothing and maybe part of the texture of the background if they have like a painted canvas. So that's really interesting to hear how people kind of do that setup. And you said a Canon R6, so why not go with the R5, the big bad R5 that everyone seems to love?
The key word is big. The files are big. The files are so large, and I felt like, you know, with regards to what I'm doing, I don't need all of that data. I don't need those huge files. That camera is awesome for, you know, if you're doing landscapes, if you're, you know, all of the photography that's anything but just, I'm in the studio here. The lighting's controlled, the temperature's controlled, which is nice. The background, so I don't need all that extra. And so I decided that the R6 was a good way to go for me. So
absolutely. And I would imagine there's probably, if you are cropping, it's probably very slight. Yeah. I'm sure there's not much, you wouldn't benefit much, if at all, from having 2 or 2.5 times the resolution.
Right, yeah. And I shoot horizontally, so that gives me the option if the company needs a vertical crop, I can do a vertical crop, so it has plenty of room, And with Photoshop, and like the soft boxes are always in the headshot because the lighting's so tight, but Photoshop with it just,
yes, it's
so easy to remove it, you know. So I'm like, yeah, it's fine, you know. Really, in Photoshop, I find I'm so comfortable with it and using it that at Lightroom it just wasn't intuitive for me. I tried it years ago and tried to like it and but it and I know so many people using, they get amazing results, but for what I'm doing, it's kind of like, Lightroom seems like a foreign language to me compared to, you know, Capture One and Photoshop.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's really about efficiency, and I even think with you don't need the 20 frames per second that's built into this. It's great that for some people who need that, but you know, with the resolution and with you know, even with you know, using Photoshop versus a batch processor, it wouldn't fit into your workflow. It's like, you know, why add these extra steps if you're not even going to need them or touch them? So if, you know, since you're working on probably 1 or 2 images at a time, especially when you get your selects, you get those right. And especially, I think it's great that you do it in front of the customer. And that way they're not having to worry about a bunch of other external opinions about, no, this is way better, even though you like this one, you know, because it's about how they want to portray themselves to, you know, prospective clients. So I think that's really interesting that I feel like as you find a workflow that works for you, the gear is almost invisible. Like, yes, it is a technical art form, but you're really probably hardly ever thinking about the equipment other than turning it on. You're really thinking about that time you're spending with that person, giving them that confidence, giving them, and I think the one-on-one time may be really nice. So they're not in the office, there's not a glass pane that they're kind of being an exhibit at the zoo going, how is so-and-so's picture going?
You know, it's like, no, not doing it. Well, and you know, also that one-on-one time, working with people, you know, it really starts in the phone conversation that I have with them, and I have pro tips that I, you know, very specific. I mean, I get as specific as, fellas, clean up the nose hair, ear hair, eyebrows, and then the ladies, we're not, you know, we're not immune either. We got the peach fuzz, you know, our makeup's gonna lay better if we get rid of that peach fuzz, and so you have to have like really frank conversations with people sometimes, and it's kind of like it gets very interesting.
I'm sure.
I had a gentleman come in one time, and one of his pupils was totally dilated, like it was huge. The other one wasn't. And in the studio here, yes, I have people sit against that wall right here, so the light's hitting them, and I'm kind of sizing up what's their good side, what's their best side, you know. And I noticed this about his eyes, and I'm like, that's curious. Like, how's he even doing that?
I've never heard of that happening.
Yeah, exactly. So. The question is, do I talk to him about it? I'm like, well, I know that he knows his eye looks like that. So, I mean, I would have to be like stupid if I didn't notice it, you know? So I said to him, like, hey, would you mind telling me? I said, we've got a little bit of an eye difference. Would you mind telling me about that? And by approaching it that way, rather than like, what's going on with your eyes? How are you doing that?
Weird, man.
Yeah,
what is this?
yeah. And so rather, it was like kind of how you ask that question is really important. And then when he told me what happened, he said, I don't mind talking about it. He goes, just a few years ago, I had an accident and a stick jammed in my eye.
Oh my goodness.
He's like, it's a miracle I can even see out of that eye. And I
cannot imagine.
And I was just like, oh, I mean, just, ooh. And so I'm like, that's terrible. I'm so sorry that happened, but I'm so thankful you can still see out of it. He's like, yeah, me too, me too. So then the next logical question is, when I take your picture, you know, do you want it to be that way in the picture? Or would you like me to, through the miracle of Photoshop, I can fix that for you and make it not look dilated? And he had, since this had been kind of a fairly recent injury, I mean, he was in his 50s, he's used to seeing his eyes, you know, the way that they've always been. And so he's like, oh, would you do that? I'm like, absolutely, I'll do that for you, sure thing. And so he loved it. He was so happy with his headshot. And it's like these things, as headshots, you know, photographers or specials, it's like we have to talk about the elephant in the room.
Yes.
And you have to talk about it in a way that is compassionate and with empathy and kind of like, all right, let's, you know, and I always think the best way to have an awkward conversation is to start out with, okay, we're about to have a really awkward conversation.
Right.
And And so whatever anybody's thinking in their mind, they always think something way worse than what it's possibly ever going to be. So it works out great. Where
tell me about your credit score. Like,
exactly. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
That's still way worse than anything.
Yes.
Oh, you're not asking that. Okay, I feel much better now.
Right. Exactly. So yeah. So being able to have those conversations is important. It's important, especially being sensitive to how we make people feel. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So.
And I would imagine even with those micro expressions that would come out in the image, when you can see that they're a bit more relaxed and not that, when you don't know somebody, I guess you kind of perceive it as like a threat, like, okay, I have to have this wall up. And then as they meet you, they've talked to you on the phone, they know how you sound, they know you're speaking to them in a polite, professional way. But then when they see you in person, they've probably seen your photo from the business, maybe, probably. And but then they're meeting you in person. They're like, oh, this person we're just having this one-on-one time, and they're asking me this question. They're asking me, maybe this skin thing, and also, even though I may have this weird skin thing that I'm self-conscious about, they offered to maybe remedy that in the image. And I think that's even bringing up the ethics of, do I change this on this person or not? Because it's like, I don't want to lie about who this person is, is at least portrayed in an image, but I also want to make sure that they're comfortable and that they are putting their best foot forward, because they're going to take pride in that image when they hand that card to that prospective client.
Yeah, and that's the great thing about shooting tethered to the laptop. We're not looking at a small LCD screen. We're looking at it, and it's big, and it's a little at first like, oh, it's my face. And but I'm having that conversation with them. Okay, we know you have these certain features, and I want you to feel like you look like you. Would you, it's like I was talking about the mole. If you have a mole, would you like to have, that can be photoshopped off. However, if that's your signature mole, like Aaron Neville, he's got himself a signature mole.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, you're keeping that mole, man, that's you. But for people who are like, they're super sensitive about it, and there are some, especially ladies, who want to get a little over retouched, because my retouching is, I don't like it to be super over retouched. I'll get my images back in the retoucher, and I'm brushing in some of the natural creases, natural things that we have. I want to see pores, we want to see skin. And so while you look like you, but just a slightly polished up version of you is important. So so having those conversations with their picture right on the laptop, okay, what would you like to do about this? And I find, especially like with corporate clients, when they are coming in to have their headshot done, they have had an experience where, okay, there's picture day at the office, and then a few weeks later in their inbox up pops, oh, here's your headshot, and they're like horrified. They're like, whoa, that wasn't the one I wanted them to use, or but I let them know, you have say. You and I get to be the ones to decide what headshot is the one that really represents you. I want my client to love their headshot. And so when they find that out, I'm like, what? When the client finds out that they get to have say in it, they are so happy about this, and it's unlike any experience that they've had before. So, and that's why when I do corporate shoots, I let them know I need a half an hour with each person.
Right.
I'm not doing the 5 minute, blasting them through. And there are some photographers that have a great business doing that. There's a need for that. But for the experience that you're going to have with Stukenborg Photo, it's like, no, we are going to take our time with this. And if someone's coming to the studio, what's the average time? I said, it's typically about 45 minutes to an hour, sometimes 2 hours, depending if you brought a lot of other outfits that you want to try out. Then you can, by all means, bring as many outfits as you want. I don't charge by the outfit.
Right, you just for that sitting fee, essentially.
Yeah, so there's the session fee, and then there's the per image fee. So a lot of times my corporate clients, they'll have, the company will cover the session fee and one image. And then we let them know, hey, if you the person coming in, if you want to have more than the one image for the company and you want different outfits, so you want something different for your LinkedIn, bring different outfits, and then they pay for that separately, but then I'll invoice out the company for that, so that gives that person actually a little bit more bang for their buck. Since the session fee's already covered, why not get a couple extra nice images?
And they're already there. So
they're
it's
here.
saving them time. That's
exactly.
excellent. That's really nice.
Yeah, so, and having it be in a place, an atmosphere where it's got to be fun. If we're not having fun, that's a problem. But it's not ever really normally a problem, because we just, and it's so funny when you have people that come in, like I'm dealing with all kinds of people, and each one is different and unique, and finding out which is the one that just makes them smile, which is because I'm not asking people to smile, I'm giving them a reason to smile.
Yes.
And that's through conversation.
Much better response.
Yeah, you get a genuine expression. Yeah, as opposed to like, it's like if you're seeing the bottom teeth, that person's holding their smile.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, what are you doing? Yes, it's like you've been duly trained now. But helping people get to that point where they've been so programmed to just like, to give that smile that just it's held. And it doesn't look like it was just a genuine moment. And I work very hard at helping them get to that point where it's a genuine moment, and I'm snapping that camera at the right time.
Keeping the innocent anonymous, do you have any embarrassing stories about yourself or a particular shoot that happened?
Yeah, this, okay, this is about yours truly, so no need to protect the innocent. I'm part of a photography group here in Tulsa called the Photogs. And we were doing going to be doing family photo shoots for an event called Help Portrait. And I was the speaker for the library session that month. And so I was going to be doing posing families together.
What a wonderful organization, by the way.
Oh, yes, I know. Yeah.
And for those of you, I'm sorry, would you explain what Help Portrait is?
Sure. Help Portrait was started by Jeremy Cowart. Did I say his last name right? Cowart?
I've only...
C-O-W-E-R-T?
Cowart or Cowart? I don't...
Yeah.
Anyway, amazing photographer, by the way.
Yeah. If you did hashtag Help Portrait, you would find amazing things. And so he started this annual event where the first weekend of December, photographers will go out and find people to do their portrait and then give them a copy of their portrait. And so our photog group, we're doing this each year. And so I was going to be speaking at the library session about posing. And so I brought my studio lights. This is back when I had Hensel studio lights that you had cords you had to plug in. And so I'm setting up. People are starting to get there for the session. These are all other photographers that are there. And so as I'm running about, got the backdrop, got the lights, I kick one of my light stands and I kick my Hensel studio light over, and I smash it on the floor. You want to hear a pin drop. Like it was, people are all talking, all of a sudden, smash, and then everybody, like, for one, they freeze. It's like freeze tag. They freeze, like, uh-oh, like, who did that? Oh no. And they were so relieved that I was the one to knock over my own light.
Right.
And I was glad too, because I wouldn't want anybody to have that pressure of like, oh no, I'm so sorry, I broke your light, And fortunately, it was just a matter of replacing the bulb.
Oh, good.
And I had the protective dome on it, so that kind of got a little dented. But so it didn't break the light, but just the bulb, But it was like, oh, here I'm the speaker, and I knock over one of my lights and smash it, So that was one of my most embarrassing moments.
You turned the shade of red as that
yeah,
Canon.
exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. But as I'm a last born, so the youngest of five, we don't know any shame. We're used to being goobers and getting embarrassed and stuff. It's like, oh, whatever. Did it get a laugh? Woohoo! It did. All right, nice. Let's go on. The show goes on. So that was an embarrassing moment there.
I'm just glad it still worked.
Oh yeah, me too. Yeah.
That way you're not like, well, I had to, now I have one.
Exactly, yeah.
So I'm going to teach everybody how to shoot with one light,
Right.
which I think is a skill on its own.
It is, yeah.
And being adaptable. Should you find
Yes.
yourself in that use where you're like, okay, this is what we have to, I can't go back and,
Right.
you know, I'm out of bulbs, I'm out, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
goodness.
exactly. And that's the thing about photography is, you know, one thing can be working right one day and then the next day it's not. You're like, what happened? And we are troubleshooters, you know, we are having to think outside the box all the time. Even when there's a normal setup, it's like, why is this not working? And really, there's a whole technical end that we may not see ourselves as technical people, but you should see the setup that Tyler has done here for even just this podcast and for the Bedford Talks. And I'm so excited about
Thank
these
you.
interviews you're doing. That's
Thank
great.
you very much. I'm hoping to expand this even more next year, have some more people, and I'll insert a video or some photos that we took right before we started filming this, so you can see the size of the room and you know, I've had to. This is obviously a bedroom, so it makes sense that we're making things work. And obviously for headshots, you don't need a whole lot of room. This is really all you need.
And that's the thing, you know, like when I wanted something to do with photography, I went out and scared up some jobs to earn some money to pay for whatever that next. It's like we shouldn't be going into debt for this, although Bedford does have a great plan, zero finance for the first 12 months, so you can definitely get in stuff. Yeah, I've seen a lot of photographers able to get in that way. That's great.
As you get that traction, and because you're able to start out with better equipment than you may have had able to scrounge up on your own, because that's going to help you. You can charge a little bit more, which gives you a little bit nicer of a cut standard of living, you know, especially if you're wanting to make that your main gig.
Right.
So when you're using that Canon 10D, you are learning photography, but then you're also possibly wanting to turn that into either like a side job or maybe something more permanent. How did you go about that transition?
Sure, yeah. Well, I wanted to get more photography equipment. So I knew, hey, I want to make some money with this camera here that I'm learning. So I started scaring up soccer shoots. There was a guy in our church, he was like, hey Pam, I got a soccer team. Would you mind doing our team pictures? And the parents, they'll pay you. And I was like, sure, okay. So I would show up on practice day and we'd queue it up where they need to come dressed in their uniforms during their practice, and then I would take the little 3x5, the little individual picture, and then do the team photo. And it's like herding cats trying to get a team photo of 4-year-olds. It was so much fun, loved it. And so I was charging something like $15
Per child?
per child. And then if they wanted, a 5x7, that's another $3. If you want 8x10, that's another $5. I didn't know what to charge. So I just kind of was thinking, well, what would the market bear? And here are these young families, and maybe they have more than one kid and on more than one soccer team. And so I think my price, the highest I went up to like $25 a kid instead, and then up the prices of the individual ones. But I was still hand stuffing the Memory Mate cardboard frame with the team photo with the little kid, And I think one of the things I learned that was so helpful during that time was I had a team of these little kiddos, and there were some white kids, there were some black kids, and they were all so cute. But I put the pasty white kids in the back of the team photo and had these other beautiful children down in front so that they were lit properly.
I was about to ask that.
Yes, and it was like such a important moment. This dad came to me and he said, thank you. He's like, this is the first team photo I've ever been able to see my son's face. I'm like, ah. So. Wow. That was that's important. Oh my gosh. So I've always been very aware of skin tone. It is important to make sure we're lighting people in a way that is just wonderful. So that was so fun hearing that feedback from the dad.
That's a really interesting discipline for not only can you photograph what you're used to photographing, but I feel like this industry it teaches you how to make friends and just not only how to talk to people, but I think you really do develop relationships through this medium.
Yes.
But it also teaches you how to photograph something that you may not normally have done in the past. And I think it's very interesting. I think it's interesting when you see other photographers that learn how to light more melanated skin, because we're all different. We're all different heights and different skin tones, and but I think that makes you a more I feel like that makes you a better photographer, looking at those potential challenges. But you're right, it does have that emotional impact on people, especially when there's someone who hasn't really been able to photograph their child in a light that we all see the child, because our eyes are the best camera, but we have to do some things to make this look how we are perceiving the world.
Right. And we don't know how these pictures are going to impact people either.
Definitely.
I volunteer for the John 3:16 mission here in Tulsa, and we had the ladies volunteering at a nursing home that was on a poor end of town, and we were like, they're like, hey, would you mind doing portraits of people? I'm like, sure, no problem. So, and my parents, history way back when, since we were little kids, my parents would bring us to the county farm.
Oh,
which the county farm was where all the old people lived, and we go and we have to sing for them and just be happy and nice and make them smile. So I'm very comfortable in nursing home settings.
Oh, right.
So it's like, oh, you want portraits? Sure, I'll do portraits. and then that was just one little thing, but every Wednesday we'd go and volunteer. Well, the lady who did the hair in the hair department, the little salon there, she went to West Virginia to take care of her grandbabies. So we had no one to do hair at the nursing home. So I volunteered. I like to do hair. And if people will let me cut their hair, well, I'll cut it, or I'll do it, whatever, So I bring my boom box, dating myself, bring the boom box, and I have either Michael Jackson.
Oh, yeah.
or Bill, jazz, Bill and his Blue Note or something like that, jazz, some sort of good music.
Oh, definitely.
And so one of the nursing staff was walking by one day, and she stopped and she was like, hey, she's like, Pam, she's like, I heard like you did pictures for the nursing home. I'm like, yeah. She's like, thank you. She's like, my grandfather was here. And actually, it wasn't one of the nursing staff. It was one of it was someone who, her grandfather was there, but she was coming back, and this was after her grandfather had passed. I don't know if she'd gotten a job there later on, but she tracked me down. She's like, I want you to know, she's like, my grandfather, we were going through his things, and we found a portrait of him. They're like, this is the only portrait we've ever seen of our grandfather, because he hated having his picture taken. He would never let anyone take his picture. And she's like, and we were like, what? Where did this come from? And it was this beautiful portrait of him, and it was just like, oh, to be able to give that to them, and it was so special. It was so special. So yeah, so you don't know, you don't know the impact that you'll have. So
that's really nice.
Yeah.
So speaking of, I guess, adaptability and being comfortable, I know you had mentioned talking about a particular camera store that was in town. You preferred that one over one that was before Bedford opened a location in that space. Tell me about how you connected with Bedford.
This is an awesome story. Yes.
Can't wait.
I know, right? So there was a time when I actually needed a piece of camera gear. I needed it right away, and I didn't have time to go across town to get it. And so I was like, oh, I guess I'll go to that store. So I go to that store, I get what I need, and I remember just kind of like, it's kind of, atmosphere's a little different in here, interesting. So I went back in my car, started up, I was about to pull out, and I look up and I see Bedford Camera and Video. I was like, wait a minute, it's a new store! Oh my gosh!
You hadn't noticed the ownership had changed?
I didn't see, no, I didn't even know, yes. And so I pulled the car back in, shut off, went inside, and looked around, and like there was music, and there was lights, and the people were like happy. And I see this gentleman walking towards me, and it was Jeff Beecham.
Oh, yeah.
Jeff Beecham comes walking towards me, and he's like, well, can I help you? I'm like, well, yes. I'm like, my name is Pam Stukenborg, and I'm one of the event coordinators for the largest photography group in pretty much all of Oklahoma, the Photogs. And I said, I just realized you're Bedford Camera and Video. You're a new store here. And he's like, well, yes, we are. And Jeff said, and I have been waiting to meet you.
Interesting.
I'm like, I had goosebumps. I'm like, oh my gosh, what? He's like, I've heard about this photography group. And I'm like, well, yes. I'm like, well, we should have you come to our meeting and introduce yourselves and let people know this is what's going on. This would be wonderful. He's like, you name the time and the place and we'll be there. And I was like, I know the time and place. and it was in the fall of the first year that Bedford's had opened. He said, you name the place, we'll be there. And just so happened, January, our kickoff meeting for that following year, I was going to be the speaker for our photog group. And I said, I know what meeting I want you to come to. You're coming to the January meeting, and that will be awesome. So I talked to our board members, and we got, okay, this is going to be great, have you come. Bedford's, they showed up. They brought Canon, Nikon, Sony, they brought vendors, they brought cards for everybody to come and print photos, they had giveaways. It was wild. And they brought Alex Kent. And so I was speaking about headshots. It was my first time ever speaking about headshots and my business and what I was doing. And so after everything was all over, Alex came up to me and he's like, Pam, he's like, hey, he's like, I really enjoyed your talk, and I was wondering, do you go different places and talk about headshots, because we have PhotoCon coming up, and would you like to come speak at PhotoCon?
Was that the first year?
It wasn't their first year. No, I don't know if it was the second year or the third. I don't know. I'd have to go back and I'd figure that out. But he's like, would you mind coming and speak? I'm like, I would love to, sure. He's like, he goes, now, am I right? Someone said this was your first time speaking about this publicly? And I was like, yeah. He's like, nice. He's like, we definitely want you to come speak at PhotoCon.
That's good.
And the other thing, it was a really sweet compliment. He said to me, he's like, I've been in the photography world. I've, headshots, yes. He's like, I didn't think okay, whatever. It's another talk about headshots. And he's like, I actually learned a few things, and really, it was interesting to listen to you talk about headshots and how passionate I was about it. And it's like, that was such a huge compliment. And from then on, since that first time at Bedford speaking for PhotoCon, we just have become this great partnership where, how can I be helpful? Whenever there's any kind of a Bedford event, how can I add value? What do you need me to do? If it's as simple as, can you set up some tables? And I'm always about tablecloths. We need a tablecloth on that to make it just look a little, nicer than just a plastic table, But it's been just a wonderful partnership, and they asked me to be an ambassador for them, for Bedford, and it's been great. They're so involved with the community. With John 3:16, the mission, we do a Women's Day of Beauty. They send down their lab manager and a printer and print images on site so the women can get their portrait right away. This past year they didn't do it, but in all the previous years they have a shootout against hunger. And it's at Zinc Ranch, clay pigeons, companies bring in teams, and they, so I would do their team portrait, and they would send the lab manager, or Robert Lake, the manager himself, would come out and print on site so that they could have their 8x10 photos of their team. And they've always been so supportive, so I really appreciate that.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So imagine yourself at 18, 20 years old, you're wanting to get into photography. What advice would you give to your younger self or someone starting out in this line of work?
So I would say an important thing is whatever you can afford. As an 18, 19-year-old, starting out with what you can afford is important. And then whatever camera you get, you take that model and you type it into YouTube and you watch videos about that camera. and about the settings and how to use it efficiently, and watch those videos and learn that camera, okay? And then as far as like, if you're working with people, you know, it's like being a last born, we've never met a stranger, you know. It's like, sure, we're not very shy because we've had to speak up because we're the last one, and you know, we'll practically be ignored unless we're doing something funny or something to get people's attention, you know. So in leaning into kind of like what your, it sounds silly, like what your strengths are, but if there's something that you're doing, whether it's photography or anything else, if you're doing it all day long, you're completely exhausted by the end of the day. But the next day, you're so charged and fired up to get up and do it all over again. That's a passion. So lean into that. So what is it in the photography realm that you love photographing that you have that same kind of a cycle of, I'm exhausted, I'm doing it all day, next day I can't wait to get up and do it again. Look for that. So I would, you know, encourage any young person getting into it to finding their niche.
Right.
Yeah, because a niche is important to be versed in, you know, all different, you know, learn all the basics. That's real important with the technical part and with the composition part. Taking classes, Bedford has great classes, you know, going to these conferences and going and learning from, you know, these speakers. There's, I mean, even, I've been doing this just headshots 10 years, but photography all these years, but I still always go into conferences where, what am I going to learn new?
Right.
And being open to that. And because being a lifelong learner, you're always going to have an interesting life.
Right. Well, and you can add all of these skills, and pretty soon you have a mountain of skills that you can apply to a lot of other shoots.
Right. Yes, yep, exactly, yes. And to be able to help other people. You know, someone like, oh, I'm trying to do this, I can't figure it out. Well, may not be something that I always do on a regular basis, but I've done it before. Here, let me help you out with that, you know? But I think at the end of the day, if you are photographing people, how we make them feel, you know? That's the really important thing. At the end of it, do they come out feeling, wow, I never saw myself that way before. I see myself differently now.
Aside from any camera body or lens, what is one accessory that you always took with you on a shoot?
Okay, this is an easy one.
Okay.
Yes. Notebook clips. Notebook clips, the medium-sized ones, because so often people's clothing, they do not fit them well. So I'm able to tailor their outfit, whether it's the collar that's too big or whether the sweater is kind of hanging off or the shirt it's not quite, or if it's a blousy outfit and it makes their arms look really big or their sides really big, if it's a little bit more, I'm clamping the daylights out of these people's clothing. And so I used to use the, you know, like you get the beauty supply, the hair clips that the salon people use, but they have teeth, and I'm always afraid. I'm like, ooh, is that gonna get cut into that fabric? So, but those notebook clips they are strong as all get out, and there's no teeth, and you can put, you know, a whole bunch on them. So that is a go-to that I always have with me on every shoot.
Oh, that's really cool. I never would have thought about that. Plus, if you position it in the right way, no one's going to see it.
No, nobody sees it. No, no. Another thing that is like my second thing I make sure I have is a piece of a dry sponge. You know the sponges where it's like real rough on one side, spongy on the other side?
Right.
Well, I take a full-size one and I cut it up, so I just have a small little square. If someone has been hugged on, suit coat, and a little bit of makeup has gotten on there, a dry sponge, not a wet one, a dry sponge will oftentimes just buff that out enough to get that mark off. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, yes. Because if you took a paper towel or even a regular cloth towel and try to dust it off, or you're going to get dust from that paper towel, that white on there. So that sponge, it's a go-to, man.
I never would have thought. That's really interesting.
Yes.
Write that down, folks.
There you go.
Now, that's tangible. What is something intangible that you always carry with you on a shoot?
Always, always. First and foremost, make it fun. And as well as, if I'm having fun as a photographer, that's going to be contagious and rub off on my client. If they see I love what I'm doing, they're going to hopefully love what I'm doing as well. But having an endless supply of just energy and encouragement, and no matter what, like we're making progress and we're heading in a direction where you are looking fantastic. And really drawing out that expression. And that's why I try not to do more than 2 headshots in one day, so that I've got plenty of time. Well, I can and I have, but I like to allow plenty of time for us to work through kind of what might be awkward, like my voice right now, what might be awkward, but to helping them feel comfortable. But like from the time they walk through my door to the point where we're done the shoot, we're culling down the images, just always like, oh wow, look at this one's fantastic. Or here, we're doing this, oh let's try and move, you know, always keeping the energy high and having it be exciting on what's going on here in this space for the client. I think for one thing that isn't really photography related, but very much is a perception. Like if someone has a studio in their home, having that conversation with the client, oh, by the way, just so you know, you are coming to my studio suite, rather than if they think they're coming to a strip mall, and then they pull into a neighborhood, they're like, what is this? Where am I going? This is a business?
Am I in
What?
the right place?
Exactly, yeah. So anybody who does have a studio in their home, you know, make sure that they have that conversation with their client ahead of time, so that they know, oh yeah, that's right. I'm gonna be, I'm not heading over to something that's beside TJ Maxx or something like that.
Exactly.
Yeah. So people appreciate that, and with so many people working from home these days, it's really,
It's becoming more normal.
yeah, it is much more normal than it was a few years back.
Well, and you are not only cultivating that community, but you are expanding that community. Maybe somebody that was a client of yours goes, well, I've always wanted to get into it. I think because I had such a good experience and I wasn't talked down to because I didn't know anything.
Sure.
So I have heard of that from some other photography groups that they go there and they're like, I think this is way above my head,
Sure.
you know, and you never, I don't want anybody to feel alienated. That's why we have these questions formulated the way they are, and that's why we have certain questions about beginners and where to start here and where you've been and where you are now, because it's the long game, definitely.
Yes. Yeah, it is.
Whether you're doing it as a part-time gig or as a full-time thing, that community is essential.
Yeah, it is. And anybody that wants to learn more about headshots in the area, I'm an open door. Come on in. You want to know? And I do mentoring. I mentor. I had someone come in from Stillwater for a mentoring session. Yeah, so I do mentoring, because think about it. I'm only one person. There's a lot of faces. There's a lot of heads in Oklahoma that need good headshots. So there's room to share that well. So I'm more than happy to share the what I know, and even with the headshot crew that I'm a part of, there's a big learning community out there. So there's that's one thing I think digital photography has been so helpful. It has blown the doors off of, like, because coming from film, and I mean, okay, I bought that camera. I'm 57 now. I bought it when I was 20, a long time ago. And I've run into the old school thinking where I'm not sharing you my secrets, because if I share you my secrets, you're going to steal my customers,
The work will dry up overnight.
Right, exactly, yeah. And with digital photography, it's put a camera in so many people's hands, even with our phones, and the creativity. There's room for this creativity, and so I love sharing it, and I love being part of the photo walks that Bedford has, and there's so much there that it really is. It's so much more fun being inclusive than exclusive.
Exactly. Well, Pam, thank you so much for sitting down and talking with us, letting us pick your brain, and not only on a personal level but on a professional level. How can people follow your work or even reach out to you?
All my social media is just Stukenborg Photo, and because there's a U and a K in Stukenborg, there's a lot of people want to put a C in there. So it's it's STU, like Stu, and then Ken, Ken, and then Borg, BORG, Stukenborg Photo. why say Stukenborg Photography? That just makes it so much longer. So I'm like, just Stukenborg Photo. So, and Instagram, Stukenborg Photo, Facebook, YouTube. I do have a YouTube channel that I have a few clips on there, a few videos from way back. But yeah, you can find me there, and StukenborgPhoto.com is my website, and you can email me through that website, DM me on Instagram. I'm most active on Instagram, and that's more than just photography. That's kind of like Stukenborg life is happening within Stukenborg Photo, but it's hard to separate the two.
Yeah, definitely.
So.
But no, that's wonderful. That's well, and also, it's not only a good tool to reach you, but you can see, people can see a small, section of the work that you do.
Yes.
Not just events you do, but the type of work you do for other people.
Yes, yes. Yeah, because I do post, my headshots on there occasionally, and at different events. If there's something going on photography-wise, I've got some posts on there, so I need to get some things up there about PhotoCon. I'm behind on my postings for that, which was a great event, and I just can't thank Bedford's enough for not only what you've done for me, and I feel like part of the Bedford family, and I just so appreciate that. We've got Photo Expo coming up in May of 2024, so be watching for that. Yes, Little Rock, and Bedford's brings in like world-renowned photographers, and you get to meet them and shake their hands and be upfront and close and pick their brain, and it's wonderful. So I really appreciate Bedford's. And so this is Bedford Talks, and the YouTube channel, is it Bedford Talks or is it Bedford Camera and Video?
So it's Bedford Camera and Video. So, you can even search Bedford Camera and you'll find us. And this is on a playlist. So if you want to see the other episodes that we've done, and hopefully we'll have many more in the future, you can just watch or listen to. I like to listen to podcasts while I'm doing things around the house. But this is going to be episode 6. There's going to be another episode I'll shoot very soon. So we're going to have 7 this year and hopefully many more next year.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you. Really appreciate it, Tyler.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.